Hey there, beautiful souls. I have a special message for you guys. As per usual, coming back to my absolute favorite topic with each and every one of you. So can't wait to dive into this one with you guys and see what you think about this, because I'm talking about, I'm going to go diving deep into relationship, and what I ultimately want to talk to you guys about is different advice that we're given out there, and in particular, around, what you hear from, say, dating coaches out there versus relationship coaches. All right. There's a real difference in what gets shared and what gets spoken about. And I want to dive into that today because I speak to a lot of people who really value the area of relationship, right? And who are either really looking for an extraordinary quality of relationship, or they're in a relationship having some challenges and wanting to make it better, wanting to grow and wanting to deepen the connection. And so basically today I want to talk to you guys about this. It is all about relationships, and we're talking and we're going to compare and contrast the difference between strategic manipulation, right, which is what most dating coaches will talk into, versus authentic vulnerability, that ideally those people who are supporting people in the depth of connection in relationship are talking about, right? So I want to dive into this one, and I want to ask you guys just straight up, if you can share this message to anywhere that you are a part of a group in personal development or of some sort of variety where you feel like these messages could be of value. Please do share it for me. That's such a gift that you can give to me. And let's dive into it. So basically, I want to talk about this whole concept of what we get told by dating coaches out there. So there's a lot of strategy going on, right? There's a lot of game playing going on. There's a lot of, do this at this particular time and don't do this until this time, and all this kind of manipulative strategy. And I want you, if you're somebody who's single and looking for a relationship or in that realm, I want you to become the kind of person who can see that from a mile away and is totally repelled by it. And I want to dive into exactly why that is. All right, there's a much deeper reason behind that. So a lot of people who are attracted to strategic manipulation and following advice from dating coaches, really what that is stemming from a very deep part of themselves that feels quite unlovable, quite unaccepting of the self. So they feel innately that what they need to do in order to attract somebody into their lives is be strategically manipulative about it, right? They have to, mold themselves into this kind of person and play these kinds of games or strategies in order to make sure that that person sees that they're of value, right? So it might look on the surface like, okay, well, this is an area of life that I want to be successful in, so I want to study the strategy that will make me successful in this realm and go about it. But ultimately, these are the kind of people who get sucked into that style, and it suits them quite well because on the deepest level, like every single human being has that fear of not being good enough. They're not self-accepting and self-loving and self-honoring. Instead, they are believing in the necessity of molding and painting a particular picture in order to attract somebody into their lives. And then what happens in these dynamics, look, it's a great strategy if they're looking for short-term success, right? Like if they're not looking for a long-term relationship, then it's probably a good strategy on the very surface level, but still they could see some work to do in regards to not actually owning who they are and valuing who they are and knowing that they're of value to the right people, right? It's still coming and stemming from that deeper part of lack of self-worth and self-love. But if you are somebody who is actually after a long-term strategy in relationship, not a short-term one, then basically you want to take a different angle. Because what happens to the people who are strategically manipulative and maybe successful in short-term attraction, but then can't sustain a long-term relationship, is basically they have molded a persona of who they think they need to be in order to attract somebody and make themselves appear lovable, right? And then what happens is, if they're actually after a long-term game with this person, the real them has to come out and play, right? Otherwise, it's a very lonely, empty dynamic at play, because even if you get the love that you had wanted, but it's based on who you've been, who you've molded yourself to be in order to get that, all that really does is reinforce to a deeper part of you, that you're not good enough as you are. You have to keep up the facade, and you're not loved for the truth of who you are. And you better not show it, because those times where it kind of seeps out a little, which it's bound to do, that truth of who you are, all those different parts of who you are, they're going to seep out, because it's like holding a beach ball, trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can only do it for so long. And when those little parts of you do kind of resurface, and then you get hit with judgment, or hang on a minute, that's not the person I fell in love with, who's this? That just reinforces for you to keep holding that beach ball under the water, and then you create this very unhealthy, very empty, very surface level connection, where it ends up being two people kind of in competition with one another, and very judgmental of one another. Why? Because you're so judgmental of yourself, and your value is determined by others, so you're constantly trying to compete, and you're constantly trying to keep up this facade and be better, because inside you feel so less than. All right? Let's compare that and contrast that with somebody who has taken the time and energy and focus to get to the point where they can actually show up with courage, with the courage that it innately takes for somebody to be authentically vulnerable. Right? What does that mean? Like, to be authentically vulnerable is to be all of who you are, to share what's actually true for you, to not gameplay, but to actually be authentic and genuine and present and spontaneous to how you actually feel and what's true for you and what you actually want in your life. Right? Not fearing rejection, not fearing what other people are going to judge you about. And basically where that stems from, like I said to you guys, you want to be so repelled by people who play games and are strategically manipulative. And there's a really good reason for that. Remember, I mentioned that those people who are more attracted to strategic manipulation than authentic vulnerability are the people who are judging themselves, who don't have a sense of real self-worth and self-love within themselves. They truly believe they have to mold themselves into this facade in order to make themselves attractive to anybody in the outside world. And you want to be repelled by that, because those people are so judgmental of themselves, and how we treat ourselves is how we treat everybody else. Do you want to be in relationship with somebody who is so hypercritical of themselves that they can't help but to project that onto you? Or do you want to be in relationship with somebody who's so self-accepting, so self-loving that they can hold the space to honor your truth and your authenticity and your growth and your expansion? That's two very, very different pathways. But we seem to get so caught up in this surface level strategy that we forget what's actually driving that behavior of ours. And when we negate the real depth of what's going on that drives why we do what we do, we end up in these relationship dynamics, and all other areas of life are deeply affected by this, by the way. But again, we're talking relationships, but we end up in these very inauthentic, very empty existences that really just do reinforce to that deeper part of ourselves that we're not good enough for who we are. All right. So, you as an individual, whether you are single, whether you are in a relationship, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you're in a relationship, it's like you can recreate the dynamic at any point that you want. Just because you've been in the same relationship for the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, doesn't mean that you can't look at and go, you know what, I'd love a new level of depth and authenticity in this dynamic. Like I'd love more love right here. I'd love more kindness, acceptance, honoring of each other. I'd love more growth and expansion, whatever it is. Like there is an amazing relationship expert out there that you guys have probably heard of by the name of Esther Perel. And I love what she says on this topic. And I've mentioned it a few times to you guys before, which is, she says, I've been married 7 times to the same man, right? And what she really means by that is at 7 key points, and it's going to change again in their future, but at 7 key points, they recreated their entire relationship dynamic. Because who you are right now is very different to who you were at the beginning of that relationship. And so as you evolve, so too does your relationship need to. Particularly if because you're in a relationship with another evolving human being. You're changing all the time. And, that means you need to reassess, is this dynamic working for me or is it not? And many people, and I've definitely done this for myself in the past, feel like, I've outgrown this. Well, maybe you have. And that's probably very true, but you're at choice point as to whether you do the work with this person to recreate the dynamic and the vision and the future, or you move on and you find somebody else who is at that level of development with you. But at the end of the day, if you want long-term depth of connection, like you want to be able to continue to grow and deepen your connection with the person that you've chosen, right? If you've selected well, you want to keep going with that, right? If you haven't selected well, well, sometimes it's better to understand that, know that, and transition out of that. Absolutely. So it's not black and white, but at the end of the day, my message really that I want for each and every one of you guys is to go for authentic vulnerability, and the degree to which you are self-honoring and valuing and self-loving and accepting and trusting of yourself is ultimately the degree to which you can go the depths of connection available to you in your potential. All right. And so don't get stuck in surface level connection with strategic manipulation of your external world. There's a lot of people out there thinking they're pretty cool because they can strategically manipulate. But be a little bit smarter than that. Understand that those who rely on any sort of strategic manipulation, this might be in relationship, might very well be in business. I've definitely had this kind of happen for me as you guys have kind of heard some of my stories with a community in particular that I was involved in. They used a lot of strategic manipulation, right, in business. So this works in every realm. Wherever that you're dealing with people, just notice if you're using strategic manipulation rather than being authentically vulnerable, which is just another marketing strategy, right? You're marketing the truth of actually who you are and using your authenticity to filter out the people who just don't align with that and attract those who are? Or is your marketing strategy around strategic manipulation, which really reinforces to you, if that's the path you're going on, you don't believe in your product, right? You don't think your product has any value. So you're feeling like the only way you're going to get a sale is through strategic manipulation, right? So apply that to business, apply that to your relationships with intimate partners as well. All right. You want to be the kind of person who absolutely has spent the time to hone and go deep and really, perfect the product that is absolutely you, not in a strategically manipulative way, in a self-loving, potential accessing kind of way, right? To tap into more depth within you and be able to share that with other people, which gives them the ability to be more accepted, more honored, more loved by you as well. All right. It's one of the best gifts that we as human beings can hope to give to others is a beautiful relationship that we can have with themselves that gives them the room and the flexibility to ultimately be all of who they are as well. All right, so hope that this message has resonated with you guys, and I hope that it makes sense for you. And like I said, please do share this message if you're in any groups of personal development that you know could find value in a message like this. I would really appreciate if you could share it, and I can't wait to dive into the comments with you guys and see who's been able to join me. So let me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Have you got any questions or comments or words of wisdom? Where are you at in relationship? What's your biggest challenge? Let's have a conversation around it, and I'll see if I can support you guys. So let me dive in. But I've got Judy in the house, and Bill, hello to you, my friend. Great to see you as always. And Josie's here, and Julie, and Jay's here, and Mario, and Jerry. Hi, Vanessa, enjoying your live from home. Beautiful Quebec City in Canada. Always grateful when you can join me, Jerry, and love it that you're coming from home today. Love Canada. And Jose, hi Vanessa, thank you for sharing this message. How can one find self-love to be more authentic and not fall into pretending to be someone you are not? Oh, Jose, awesome question. And as always, I really appreciate you showing up and contributing to today's conversation. So this is where it starts, right? Like, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Like, you build your ability to be more authentic by having the courage to go where you don't want to go. But one strategy, there's a million different strategies. I like to look at it this way. If there was a movie being played of your life, right? Like your entire life was getting aired on international television, and the entire world was going to see that on their screens and see every part of your life tonight, right? 6 o'clock tonight, this is happening. What would you really not want them to see? What would you be completely devastated for them to see? All right, like, this is going deep. And basically what you'll be able to do if you like really look at this, and you actually did some of this work this morning, and you really look at this and you identify those parts of your history that you're just like, oh, I don't want people to see that. I'd be totally humiliated. Basically, you've just created your map towards self-love. Okay, and the reason is, and the pathway to be all of who you are. Because the reason we don't be all of who we are is because we have guilt or shame preventing us from moving in that direction. And so we feel like we have to be somebody that we're not. Otherwise, people are going to be alerted to what we believe about ourselves, and therefore we're not going to want to have anything to do with us. Right? Imagine being in relationship 24/7 with somebody who doesn't want anything to do with you and is totally ashamed of you. That's what we're doing within ourselves when we don't have the courage to be authentic, and it all stems from the parts of you that you're ashamed of. All right, so when you can shine light on your deepest, darkest places, those fears, those shames, those insecurities, those places where you feel really guilty, when you can shine light on those, they're ultimately your ticket to freedom in terms of being authentic and being self-loving. Because once you've identified those parts of you that you're ashamed of, you've just given yourself the map for your own personal growth and development. All right, because there are always, and I love the work of Dr. John Demartini for this stuff. In fact, I just listened to one of his free webinars just this morning, and he actually spoke into this in a different context, but it really applies right now. So basically, once you've identified those areas of shame, you need to realize that there's always two sides. Right? We feel ashamed or we feel guilty because we feel like it was more detrimental to people than of benefit to people. And so what we can do is actually look at those things first and foremost. That's step one. And then go, how has this actually been of benefit to me? How have I grown from this? If it's something that you're ashamed of, like, that's to do with you, right? So you need to look at that thing in a whole new light. You need to find a new perspective. So whatever that thing was that you're ashamed of, you need to ultimately go, well, how has this made me a better person today, right? And you've got to stack up all the benefits of that very thing that you're so ashamed of. And once you get into equilibrium, meaning you've balanced it out, you can clearly see there are just as many positives to negatives. That's when it no longer has control over you. And if it's something that you feel guilt around, that tends to be because you feel like what you've done or not done had more drawbacks than benefits to somebody else. So you again need to shift perspectives, and this takes some time and energy, but don't you want to be in relationship with somebody who absolutely loves and appreciates all of who you are? That relationship that you have with yourself, right? Then ultimately you need to do this work. It's worth it, I'm telling you, to go back to those times where you felt guilty and then again, shift your perspective, balance out, get into equilibrium in terms of there are just as many benefits to that person as drawbacks. And on face value, this sounds like crazy. I'm telling you that those perspectives are available to you. Everything in life is always in duality. There are always just as many positives to every single negative, right? It's always in balance. What's out of balance is your lopsided perception of reality, all right? So anytime you're in shame or guilt or any of those limiting emotions that are preventing you from showing up authentically, don't judge yourself for them. They're part of your human nature. Just be more intelligent about it now because you have better answers. And you know that this is caused by a lopsided perception of reality. You're living in a fantasy, seeing all bads and no goods, all right? Because everything has, both extremes upon it, right? So when you are getting yourself into balance, that's when those fears and shames and guilts and all the rest of it and those regrets, they no longer have that hold on you on an identity level. And that's when you become somebody who is ultimately self-accepting so that you have the courage to show up authentically. All right. And that is not a quick, fast magic pill simple solution, but it is the true one that will hold its sustainability in your life. All right. And like I said, you want to be the kind of person who repels against strategic manipulation from within yourself and from other people, because you want to actually live to the depth of who you are, to live authentically, love deeply, right? So if you want to do that, you have to go within and you have to face those dark corners, the darkest of the dark. And that's why I said and used that analogy that I heard from Dr. John Demartini about, having your whole life on the screen for the world to see. What would you be most ashamed and guilty about, all right? Because that, like I said, is your pathway to being your most authentic self, all right? And in my life, I've reached a level where I'm just like, you know what? My standard for connection is just like, it's like we're either going deep and we're getting vulnerable and we're being true and authentic, right? Without games or manipulation, or we're just not having that connection, and that's okay. All right. And you want to have that in your own life, because it's a very lonely existence when you have a quantity of people around you, but no quality, right? Quality comes from depth of authenticity and your ability to be all of who you are in relationship and allow that space for others to do the same. All right. So that's where fulfillment is. And Jose, I hope that has helped you. And I definitely appreciate you sharing that question. Let me know. And Jerry, to remain authentic and true to ourselves is our blueprint. We share our authenticity and others relate to us and who we are. To remain proud with authenticity is what you share, happiness, love, and kindness. I love that, Jerry. Absolutely. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, authenticity isn't their blueprint for the world. They think the opposite, They think that my blueprint for living a happy, successful life is anything but being my true self, right? It's got to be this molded image, right? And so that's my wish for everybody, is that we do get to a point where that being totally true to ourselves is our blueprint for a happy, successful, fulfilling life. All right, so I love that share, Jerry. Thanks so much for being here. And Nicole, much love to you. And Zara's here as well. And Elps, if you love yourself, it will reflect to your relationship as well. Absolutely. Remember, however we treat ourselves is how we end up treating others. All right. That's why I said at the start, I'm like, strategic manipulation, is so repelling to me. Right. And the reason is because I can tell on a deepest level that person's highly judgmental and not accepting or valuing of themselves as the truth of who they are. They think they have to create something in order to be loved and accepted. And so I know human nature is to project our very same relationships that we have with ourselves onto the people particularly closest to us. All right. We can't help but do that. And so that's why it repels me completely. And my hope is that it will repel you as well. All right. So love that, Elps. Thanks for showing up again. Love to see you. And DB's back. I love to see you as well. And Hendrik is here. And Wendy, yay. I don't get how I can cut someone out of my life and them still wanting what we can't have. And keep contacting me. Even if I block them, authenticity is not there at all. Love it, Wendy. Yeah, this is a common theme. And so, that whole concept I'm always talking about, which is 100% responsibility. Here's some challenge, because this is one of the lessons that I've learned the hard way so many bloody times. And I can really relate to what you're saying there, Wendy, which is, why, I have to stop and I have to look at those times where I've had these people. And you know what? This is the first time in my life for a very, very, very long time that I don't have obsessive people trying to contact me all the time and me getting to a place where I have to block them, right? And even block them, and then they find another way, and then another way, and then another inlet, and then another one. And at some point, you know what I had to do? Was I had to realize and accept 100% responsibility. And this is very recent for me. I've been on a big journey for this. And basically what had to happen was I had to go, what is it about me that is continuously attracting people to disregard my boundaries, right? Because that's what this person's doing. No matter what the dynamic or the relationship is, if you've set a healthy boundary and a standard for yourself and you've said, no, this is not okay, this is not the quality of relationship that I want in my life, and somebody keeps trying to knock on that door, what is it about you that is accepting of that and inviting that? All right. And I was like, what? No, and it came down to the fact that I was being too people-pleasing. I was being much too indirect, and I was being much too concerned about this person's emotional experience at the expense of what was healthy and true for myself. And so, of course, I was inviting this person to continue to bang on my boundaries because it was the exact growth that I needed to have in order to become a more whole, rounded out individual who does what's most self-loving. All right. So, and you guys have heard the story if you've been following me for a while. I literally recently, back in April, had somebody literally threaten my life, right? That's how much this lesson had to escalate for me to realize and take 100% ownership and go, enough is enough. I'm never doing that pattern again. All right. So I totally resonate with what you've just shared there, Wendy. My love is with you. You've got this, and totally just take more responsibility. How are you, creating this and attracting this? And it seems to me like it comes down to your boundaries. And maybe this is somebody in your life who you've kind of put a boundary and then you've let them kind of break it down a bit, and then you put one and it breaks down, and then over time they just don't even believe about your boundaries. It's just like, whatever you say, yeah, I'll get what I want, right? I know this pattern, I've had it a lot. And basically now is an opportunity. This person is giving you a massive opportunity to grow in the area that you most need it. All right. They're giving you a gift. All right. So this is your opportunity to take high levels of responsibility, and reach out to me if I can support you in any way on that journey. I know it's a tough one, but it is one of the most freeing ones that we can hope to go through. So love that, Wendy. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. And Nicole, I have no girlfriend, but I want girlfriend. So how make a good girlfriend? Okay, Nicole, what I would say to you is if you are in search for a great relationship, the best thing that you can ever do is become the most inspired you can be as an individual. Don't chase somebody in your external world. The one that you are looking for is you, all right? If you're trying to needily get something from a relationship outside of yourself, it's really just pointing to a void that you have within that you need to do some growth work with. And the best pathway I've found for attracting the right quality of people into your life is to focus on what inspires you the most in this world. Right? Find what that is. There's nothing more important than that. And when you're fulfilled and you're following what really inspires you authentically, you'll notice that you become magnetic to other people who are really in alignment with that vision that you have for your life as well. All right? Super important to look at life that way. And to also acknowledge and take 100% responsibility. Where's my neediness, right? We all have neediness. If we're trying to chase something and we feel like something's missing, there's a neediness attached to that, which really points to something that we need to develop within ourselves, all right? If we're chasing love, how am I not loving myself, right? For instance. So love that, Nicole. I appreciate your question and I hope that that helped. And Ty's here as well and Nova's back. You make perfect sense. I'm so grateful to hear that. Thank you so much. And awesome. And okay, and Wendy, thank you so much, Vanessa. Happy Saturday, lovely. Thank you so much, beautiful. You're so welcome. So I really hope today's message has served each and every one of you guys today, and it just gives you this perspective and a deeper perspective, right? On all that kind of dating coach advice, whatever, like the game playing, like be so repelled by that, seriously, because you want to be in relationship with somebody who's very genuinely self-loving, authentic, and self-honoring and valuing, so to the point where they don't need to mold themselves in order to attract you, right? They can be themselves, and that's really attractive because they're giving you an insight into how they're going to be able to treat you so that you can become your most authentic, rounded out individual as well. Another thing Dr. John D. Martini said, which really resonated with me, is that he said, your partner is here to make you authentic, right? Like they challenge you to be more authentic. That's what relationship is ultimately all about, going the depths. So don't get it mistaken. Don't stay on the surface and don't, rely on strategic manipulation, right? Go for authentic vulnerability, right? That's where the sexiness is, all right? And Bill, thank you for this excellent soul smart wisdom. You're so welcome, Bill. I'm always grateful to have you joining live and contributing, and thank you so much for those kind words. And Michael's here as well, and Simon. Everything is about 100% responsibility. Yeah. Totally. And healthy boundaries. This is something that I love hearing. I do. You're awesome, Simon. And I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, love that you guys get this because, listening to messages like this means you have to take 100% responsibility, right? And most people don't want to do that. So I want to congratulate each and every one of you guys and really acknowledge you for the strength and the courage that you have as an individual to grow yourself and take on that responsibility. So you know that the freedom and the fulfillment that you really desire to have in your life is in your hands, right? And most people, they're too scared. They want to handball that, but they're living in a fantasy and it's costing them their existence, all right? So you guys are some of the lucky ones, and I'm super grateful to each and every one of you. Like I said, if you can share this message, if it's of value, and as always, my message to each and every one of you guys is to go out there and live authentically, love deeply, and contribute meaningfully. All right? You were born for a reason and a purpose that serves everyone. All right? I'm not being idealistic about that. That's just the simple truth. All right? So we need to do this work to get out of get out of our own way, right? To love and accept and honor and value ourselves. Do the work to clear the shame, clear the guilt, clear all those negative perceptions that we hold that limit us. We need to get them out of the equation, all right? So that we can go about living towards an authentic, inspired life, all right? So that is my message for you. I'm sending you guys all of my love, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow.